Welcome, and it's time for our news bulletin right here on Luntha television. And you're with me, Patrick Pooper. But first, our headlines. Pope Leo XIV calls for stronger preservation of identity, liturgy, and traditional overseas. Dodma calls for collective air reaction ahead of possible El Nino. Governance activist calls for deliberate support for women in June 30 by elections. In international news, Kenya to pay compensation to almost 2,000 victims of violent protest. And those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. Pope Leo XIV received a delegation from the Syro-Malankara Church on June 15 on the occasion of its first convention for clergy and laity residing in Europe, urging them to preserve and promote their identity, particularly within the context of the diaspora in Europe and the United States. The origins of this church lie in the Christian tradition of India, specifically in the state of Kerala, and traced back to the Christians evangelized by the Apostle Thomas in the 1st century. We have a Catholic News Agency report read by Tandu Mzumara.
In his address, the Pope noted that the Syro-Malankara Church began to grow rapidly beyond ethnic or linguistic boundaries, initially in the neighboring state of Tamil Nadu, as the fruit of evangelization efforts began in 1934. In this vein, he highlighted the need for an urgent commitment to preserving and promoting the inestimable treasures incarnated by all the Eastern churches, especially within the growing diaspora. The Pope underscored the presence of these faithful in the United States, just as Benedict XVI and Pope Francis had done. Along the same lines, he addressed in particular Bishop Kyriakose Mar Othasios, whom he recently appointed as apostolic visitator for the Syro-Malankara faithful residing in Europe. His responsibility includes, according to the Pontiff, surveying the current state of pastoral care with a view to making proposals to the local bishops and churches, thereby contributing to the good of the entire Catholic Church. In this regard, he asked them to promote greater awareness about the precious identity of the Syro-Malankara Church and the experience of its unique heritage.
The Department of Disaster Management Affairs (DODMA) has urged stakeholders to strengthen preparedness and coordination as Malawi braces for a possible El Nino weather phenomenon expected in the second half of 2026. Speaking at the stakeholders' El Nino preparedness meeting in Lilongwe on Tuesday, Commissioner for Disaster Management Affairs Wilson Mollin said area planning and collective action are essential for minimizing the impact of climate-related disasters on communities and the economy. We have a report by Falis Kizombe.
Mollin noted that Malawi experienced the devastating effects of El Nino during the 2023-2024 rainfall season, which was characterized by prolonged dry spells, localized flooding, reduced agricultural production, water shortages, and increased humanitarian needs. He said climate-related hazards affect multiple sectors including agriculture, food security, health, education, infrastructure, energy, and social protection, making it essential for all stakeholders to work together in addressing the risks.
So we are in the process of readiness. I think that's why we called for this stakeholders engagement meeting, so that all the stakeholders from government and development partners, CSOs, firstly understand what the weather forecast is, and then from there we can work on early actions in order to avert the risks that will come later when the real El Nino begins to bite.
In her remarks, Director of Department of Climate Change and Meteorological Services, Dr. Lucent Ratira, said past experiences have shown that El Nino can bring varying outcomes, including drought in some cases, and heavy rainfall in others. She has since emphasized the need for accurate and reliable information to guide preparedness efforts.
Yes, indeed, El Nino has started developing in the tropical Eastern Pacific. What it means is that the temperatures are getting warmer there. When it's warmer there, over the country, especially Malawi, we likely get below normal rainfall. And this is what we were sharing with the stakeholders here, that the likelihood of having below normal rainfall over the country during the next rainfall season is there, but still we need to work upon our seasonal forecasts, because this is what can give us a full picture of what is likely to happen.
El Nino is caused by the warming of ocean waters in the Pacific Ocean, and its effects often include reduced rainfall in parts of Africa, including Malawi, while other regions may experience above normal rainfall. Reporting for Luntha News, this is Fales Chizombe.
As Malawi prepares for the June 30 by-elections, governance and women rights activist Martha Kwataine has called on political parties, governance institutions, civil society organizations, and the electorate to take deliberate steps to support women candidates seeking public office. Speaking to Luntha television, Kwataine expressed concern over the continued underrepresentation of women in parliament and other decision-making positions, saying the situation undermines efforts to achieve gender equality and inclusive governance in the country. Alison Banda reports.
Kwataine noted that despite women constituting significant proportion of Malawi's population, their presence in political leadership remains low due to various barriers, including limited financial resources and unequal access to opportunities within political parties. According to Kwataine, the upcoming by-elections provide an important opportunity for voters and political stakeholders to demonstrate their commitment to promoting women's participation in leadership by supporting qualified female candidates. She urged political parties to move beyond rhetoric and provide practical support to women candidates through fair campaign, resources, mentorship programs, and protection from intimidation and discrimination from the campaign period. Kwataine further emphasized that increasing the number of women in parliament and local councils would help ensure that interests and concerns of women, children, and other marginalized groups are adequately represented in policy formulation and national development agendas. She also appealed to voters to judge candidates based on their capabilities, leadership qualities, and vision for development rather than gender, stressing that women are equally capable of delivering effective leadership and driving positive change in their communities.
The numbers are not really impressive. We have very few women represented in the National Assembly. Even at the council level, there are still very few councillors. And this is not aligning well with the Malawi Agenda 2063. We are hoping that by 2063, there must be 50-50 representation. But at the pace we are operating, I doubt if we'll be closer to that. So I would like to call upon political parties to make a deliberate effort to support female candidates.
Malawi will hold by-elections on 30th June to fill vacant parliamentary and local government seats in various constituencies and wards across the country. For Luntha Television in Lilongwe, my name is Alison Banda.
As Malawi joins the rest of Africa in commemorating the Day of the African Child, the Child Rights Advocacy Center has called on government to address challenges affecting the education sector, including abuse of learners, overcrowded classrooms, shortages of teachers, and inadequate learning materials. Executive Director of the Child Rights Advocacy Center, Memory Ngosi, made the remarks during an interview with the Luntha Television as Malawi joined the rest of the continent in commemorating Day of African Child. Emmanuel Chocha with the details.
Ngosi acknowledged that although Malawi has made significant progress in improving access to education through initiatives such as free primary and secondary school education and the construction of schools infrastructure, many learners continue to face challenges that affect the quality of education. She has therefore urged government and stakeholders to increase investment in education sector by constructing more classrooms, recruiting additional teachers, and providing adequate learning materials.
As a country, we have made strides in terms of improving the quality of education, and you and I can testify that even currently we are looking at free secondary school education, and also just an improvement in terms of infrastructure that maybe the government is trying so hard to ensure that some of the challenges that our children are facing in schools can be addressed.
Education expert Charles Malua says the Day of the African Child provide an opportunity for Malawi to reflect on the quality of education being offered in schools. Malua noted that despite training many teachers, the country has failed to employ enough of them, resulting in teacher shortage in schools. He has since called for a review of the curriculum to ensure it responds to local needs and realities.
We have to say that as a nation, we are trying, as the Malawi government is trying to make sure that access to education and quality of education are enhanced. For example, we can talk about the free primary school education that has enhanced access to primary school education. And just very recently, this current government also abolished the tuition fees in secondary school. These are some of the means to make sure that access to education is in Malawi.
This year, Day of African Child is being commemorated under the theme Ensuring Universal Access to Water, Sanitation and Hygiene for Every Child in Africa. For Luntha News in Lilongwe, this is Emmanuel Georgia.
The Minister of Natural Resources says it will intensify efforts to improve tree survival rate following the successful planting of more than 59 million trees during the 2025 and 2026 National Forest Season. Minister of Natural Resources Patricia Whiskers says while the ministry is pleased to have exceeded its target of 41 million trees, attention will now focus on ensuring that more planted trees survive beyond the planting season. Charlie Chiranga with the details.
During a press briefing marking the closure of the 2025-2026 National Forestry Season, Whiskers said the country managed to plant over 59 million trees, surpassing the set target through the support of government institutions, non-government organizations, private companies and members of the public. Despite surpassing its planting target, Whiskers said the ministry remains concerned about the current 60% tree survival rate and plans to invest more in post-planting care, including weeding and firebreak construction. She added that although the interventions are not funded under the current national budget, discussions with development partners and non-government organizations are underway to secure support.
It's a very good stride, and as a ministry we are very satisfied and impressed with the rate, with the number that we have managed to hit. As you are aware, the target for the 2025-2026 planting season was set at 41 million. However, we have been able to beat that number, and we would like to give thanks to a vote of thanks to different stakeholders that took part in this year's planting season.
The 2025-2026 National Forestry Season was launched on January 16, 2026 in Palombe District under the theme Trees and Forests for Community Resilience. According to the ministry, over 59,000 trees of various species were planted nationwide, while 8,142.94 hectares of natural regeneration were managed during the season.
In case you are just making a big switch, remember you are watching News Bulletin coming to you from Luntha Television, and you are with me, Patrick Pooper. But for now, let's have a recap of our top stories. Pope Leo XIV calls for stronger preservation of identity, liturgy, and traditional overseas. Dodma calls for collective air reaction ahead of possible El Nino. Governance activist calls for deliberate support for women in June 30 by-elections. In international news, Kenya to pay compensation to almost 2,000 victims of violent protest. Welcome back, and moving on with our news. Balaka District Commissioner Bibu Yusuf Mdala has emphasized the importance of security in safeguarding lives and protecting government development projects. Mdala made the remarks on Saturday during a police community engagement event held at Andiamo grounds, where police officers and residents committed to strengthening cooperation in crime prevention and public safety. Emmanuel Galeta has filed this report.
In his statement, Balaka District Commissioner, who was also the guest of honor at the function, Bibu Yusuf Mdala, said security is paramount for the safety and security of everyone, including investors. Mdala also said that development projects government has lined up cannot be successfully implemented without security, citing potential theft of project construction materials for development funds such as the CDF.
We believe that for us to implement effectively the CDF and all those other development interventions, we need an environment that is secure, an environment that is stable.
Speaking at the function, Balaka police officer in charge, Assistant Commissioner of Police Mr. Kevin Maigwa, said police community engagement program was not new. Maigwa said the program sought to raise more awareness on the good relationship that exists between the police and the community now that the police is reformed, and bring the police closer to the people.
We used to be people's enemy, but we want to be people's friends. We are already their friends, but we want to bring the gap which used to exist between members of the community and the police. We are a different police. So our today's function is just sports, or it's like what we can say an open day. Community policing open day. Bring the police closer to the people.
For his part, Balaka Station Exit Committee SEC Chairperson Christopher Pio said relationship between the police and the community in the district has been cordial since the last 3 years. He said it was important to extend the community engagement program to the outskirts of the district, to areas such as Nkaya, which has recently reported striking cases of suicide.
Nchifua chake tamba kampeni imene iyi panopatangira pano pabalaka paboma koma beti sasa kujifike soma dira yena monga ngati imene anakambira senior chief chamtume tikena so tikafike kumeneko kukaya tikafike kumeneko anthu tikuyenera kuwaunikira kuopsha mwina kodzipa chifukwa ngamba muona iti izidi zikuchitika zinachitika.
The police engagement program was marked by, among other activities, police parade, live performances by Ntuzi Band and Charles Neta, Kevin Maigwa and Palapala and Pachipapa crew, talent show by Multi Films, men and women football between Andiamo Bullets versus Invisible Tigers, and Cecilia Youth Center versus Blue Stars. Reporting for Luntha TV, news from Balaga, this is Emmanuel Galeta.
CCP Nkoma Synod moderator Reverend Abisalom Nyasulu has described the elevation of Kamankuku Prayer House to a fully pledged mission station as a significant milestone in the Synod efforts to spread the gospel across the country. Nyasulu made the remarks on Sunday during a church service marking the elevation of Kamankuku Prayer House to Kamankuku Mission in Lilongwe. We have a report. Speaking during the event, Reverend Nyasulu expressed delight over the development and encouraged members of the congregation to remain united and commitment to evangelism, particularly among people living in rural areas. He said the elevation reflects the Synod's continued growth through the multiplication of congregations and demonstrates its commitment to ensuring that the gospel reaches every corner of the country. Reverend Nyasulu further thanked God for his mercy and grace, saying the achievement would not have been possible without divine guidance and support, which has enabled the church to grow and establish a permanent place of worship.
Nkoma Synod, and as a moderator of CCP Nkoma Synod, we are, and I am, to be specific, delighted to see Kamwankuku prayer house being elevated to Kamwankuku mission or station. I have just to encourage the Christians and the for this congregation, all the members of this congregation, to be united and to continue spreading the gospel to the rural masses.
Kamwankuku Church was officially opened on December 10, 2017 under Kachenga CCAP mission and has since grown into a mission station under the CCAP Nkoma Synod. And in international news, Kenya will pay compensation to almost 2,000 victims of protest-related human rights abuses, President William Ruto said on Monday, marking a rare national reparations process outside the judicial system. Violent protests in the Eastern African nation have left a trail of destruction in which hundreds of people have died, injured, and suffered business losses. We have an African News report read by Tanduem Sumara.
The most recent incident, 2 demonstrations over an Ebola quarantine center for Americans, left 3 people dead and dozens of others injured. The victims of human rights abuses will begin receiving compensation from next week after vetting by the state-funded Human Rights Commission. Dozens of people died and hundreds of others were injured in an annual anti-government protest against increased taxes in June 2024 and June 2025. Property worth millions of dollars was destroyed in a series of protests that the government said were infiltrated by criminals. Ruto said the compensation was not the price of life, of pain, or of loss, and that should not be seen as a reward for violence or criminality in a country where violent protests are common.
And with that international report, let's have a weather report by Tapiwa Kudagumoto.
Good evening, and it's time for weather forecast. Cold to cool conditions were experienced over most areas this morning, with Jirede and Ilongwe reporting the lowest at 6 degrees Celsius, followed by Kamuzu International Airport, Halombe, as well as Vumbwe in Cholo, which reported 10 degrees Celsius. We are currently expecting most areas in the southern part of the country and mostly cloudy conditions over the central as well as the northern part of the country, accompanied by Anje and Mangoshi at 16 degrees Celsius, but we should expect cold conditions to persist also over most areas such as Dedza, Ncheu, as well as Lilongwe. Looking into the afternoon hours of tomorrow, we should expect partly cloudy conditions to persist over the southern part of the country, while mostly cloudy conditions are expected over the central as well as the north. Temperatures will feel hot tomorrow in the afternoon over Ngabu and Isanje at 29 degrees Celsius, but generally mild to warm conditions are expected over the south, the central, as well as the northern part of the country, accompanied by windy conditions. Looking into Thursday, we should expect partly cloudy conditions to persist over the country, accompanied by cold to cool temperatures at night and during early morning hours, while warm conditions during the day. We are also expecting windy conditions to persist over most areas. I'm Deborah Kodakumudu. Be wise, be weather-wise.
And with the weather report, we have come to the end of our news bulletin right here on Luntha Television. But before I go, top stories once again. Pope Leo XIV calls for stronger preservation of identity, liturgy, and traditional overseas. Dodma calls for collective air reaction ahead of possible El Nino. Governance activist calls for deliberate support for women in June 30 by elections. In international news, Kenya to pay compensation to almost 2,000 victims of violent protest. And thanks for watching our news bulletin right here on Luntha Television. And this has been Patrick Pupa. I wish you a lovely time and keep watching Luntha Television, and bye for now.